Hey everyone, it's Crystal from Sober Onions podcast. I am here with my friend Kenny, who is in Minnesota. I have been following Kenny on social media, and definitely this subject is close to my heart. Well, a couple things. Today is Veterans Day, so we just want to shout out to everyone who has done service. And we are so thankful that we live in a free country and that you have fought for our freedom. And I want to honor my grandpa, Bill. He's my only living grandparent left. All of my grandparents died from alcoholism or that led to cancer in some way. And my grandpa got sober 22 years ago. He lives in Florida, up in Bonifay, which is kind of where you're close to Jacksonville. And he was actually in the Vietnam War. And so he's still healthy, and like I said, he stopped drinking. And I actually this week I'm making my amends to him and placing that phone call. So I will give everybody the update on that. I was struggling with why he hadn't called me since I got sober, and it's so funny because I'm 42, and why I still need my grandfather's approval is beyond me, but I do. So and then I've been working with my sponsor, and I called him drunk all the time, and he took my phone call every single time. And then I go to rehab and get sober, and somehow it's his responsibility to call me. so so I'm learning how to get out of these selfish ways that I have had the habits of doing. So in honor of Veterans Day, I will be calling him today and making those amends to him. But I know that through my father, he does know that I am sober, and he is very proud and happy about that because he himself is sober, and we share that together. So with that said, thank you so much for your service. So I'd like to introduce you. Kenneth here is in Minnesota. He is the author of 12 Faces of Sober. You can find him on 12 Faces of Sober on social media platforms, as well as 12facesofsober.com. Actually, today he is running a sale on his website for $8 off of this book in honor of veterans. But any other time, if you're listening to this in 1 month, today, or in 5 months, you can find it on Amazon. So Kenneth, I want to learn all about you. I want to talk to you about the fact that you have helped so many people through your book who have suffered with post-military life, drug abuse, domestic violence, inequality, mental health, and just struggles from alcoholism. And as an alcoholic yourself, I would just like to know, how long have you been sober, and what is your story, and how did you get sober, and what was your underlying issues to continue to drink, and how do you stay sober now?
Crystal, first, thank you very much for having me on. Having me on Veterans Day on Sober Onions. I greatly appreciate it, and congratulations to you on celebrating. You said 6 months of being sober.
Yes.
Definitely an achievement. Like I said, any day sober is better than still partaking in alcohol. So definitely, congratulations to that.
Thank you.
Like I said, I served in the Army from 2009 to 2015. I was a cook. I was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, as well as Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. I got out on a medical discharge, and that very first year that I was out, I didn't. It was more or less, a shock to reality. I wanted to go to school and just get my master's degree, and not really focus on work. But at the time I was married, and my now ex-wife wanted me to go back to work, and I wanted to focus on my health and put my mind on other things, but that didn't work out. So I worked a couple jobs. One of the companies, they wanted to pay me like $11 an hour. I did it more or less to appease my ex-wife. I quit after the first 5 days. Went on another job, and that one was actually it was a substance abuse, I guess you can say, but it was more or less with individuals with disabilities. and I was doing public relations, but I still was deep into dealing with reality, post life after the military. I was still drinking, and I just stopped going to work. And I had missed work like 2 days in a row. They called me and was like, "Hey, we need you to come in." And at that point, it didn't really matter. So they basically fired me, and I haven't worked since. I've been out of work since December of 2015. But the good thing about it is that I went through, more, I guess you can say like a binge for another 7 to 9 months, and was homeless in Phoenix. And I had, called my mom one day, and it's actually like right around this time, 5 years ago. I was in a homeless shelter, and they actually kicked me out. And I called my mom and I was like, "Hey, I need to come back to Minnesota." But she was like, "You need to get help." So I was like, "Okay." And so I was here for a couple of weeks before I went to treatment, and went to big shots out to the St. Cloud Regional VA up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And I did 30 days in treatment through the VA. And during that time, because I had already been to treatment in the past, one time in the military and two other times as a civilian, I kind of knew the program. And so I knew like I had to have a plan. And as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, I was homeless. So I was more or less determined on, okay, I need a place to stay when I get out of here, regardless of if it's 30 days, 60 days, 90, or if it's longer than that. So during that time, I applied for, I applied for an apartment, as well as I applied for grad school at St. Cloud State, the same university I received my bachelor's degree in 2003. So I applied on a Tuesday, was accepted on a Thursday. And so all these things were, I guess you can say, beginning to unfold, and I hadn't even gotten out of treatment yet. So I went ahead and got out. The day I got out of treatment, December, I think it was December 15th of 2016, I had the keys to my apartment. And so I kind of hit the road running. 3 weeks later, I was in grad school. After that, about a month or two, I did a study abroad at Nelson Mandela University in South Africa, or Port Elizabeth, South Africa, which is one of the best experiences that I could have ever done, especially early in sobriety. And so it gave me the motivation, and it gave me the purpose to want to continue to be sober. And like I said, I went to grad school, and I think I was like 36. We're actually the same age. I'm 42. I just turned
Okay.
42 in August.
Very
And
good.
the students, they were like, "Hey, Kenny, what, you're 37. Like, why are you in school? You don't have to work anymore." And I'm like, "Well, I promised myself back in 2003 that I would get this master's degree, and now I'm doing it. I don't have anything else to do with my life." And that's what it was. And I started to tell these students, "Hey, like I'm working on sobriety." They're like, "Wow, they're getting started in drinking," and I'm telling them like, "Not."
No, doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I communicated, I was more or less a mentor at Multicultural Student Services, and they basically was like, talk to the students. And as I'm telling the students my story, they're like, "You need to write a book." And so that's where the book came into play, 12 Faces of Sober. But I didn't want to write it because I was already writing term papers. So it was like I had the idea, and how the things that I wanted to address, and I waited until I completed my program, which was December of 2018. And so at that point, I just kind of like pieced together, started working on it, and just went back and just told my story of the struggles that I went through before I joined the military, how much alcoholism increased when I was in the military, and how I didn't wasn't able to really process life once I got out the military, suffering from the PTSD, and a host of other things, dealing with a divorce. And like I said, now I more or less try to continue to tell my story, because I feel that it's there wasn't too many people that was when I first started that was telling it like this. And so that's why, like, I don't have a problem with sharing my story, talking about it, in any given point of it, because I know that it's going to help somebody in some way. So,
Absolutely.
and that's what it is. And like I said, with the book has been out now. I released it last year on my birthday, August 2nd. It's doing pretty good. I've only had, due to COVID, I've only had like one public event. I did Juneteenth back in June in Jacksonville. That was an amazing experience, and I definitely want to do more. But like I said, COVID kind of threw things off, so I just didn't want to pursue it, and so I didn't. But I definitely know next spring that I'll be getting back out there and hopefully be able to do public speaking events as well too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And once you're out there, I think too, it's gonna be so relatable. I know, even though I'm not in the military, I was in the military, I was married to military. And so, you know, um, I had a really hard time with the military for a long time, because when September 11th happened, my husband went to Iraq and knocked up a girl in his unit. And so I hated the military. I was like, I had really bad skew, but I've had therapy and counseling for that. And I've worked my way through that. But what I know to be true is, now that we've had COVID, we had, September 11th, and we're dealing with, with COVID, with all of the things that we've had to deal with as a society. Not only is alcohol rampant and it's more acceptable, is that when you are in the military and you're in this structured life, and then you just get thrown back into society, it's like you're thrown in without a life vest. Mm-hmm. And I can relate to that in the sense that I did mission work for many years, where I traveled overseas, and I lived in Australia and Fiji, and I was in, different parts of the world. And how they structured it though was we had 2 weeks of training. We would go out into the world, or whatever country you're in, and then we came back and they debriefed us for 2 to 3 weeks, because we were on this cloud, or this high of going out there and sharing our story, or making a difference. Or we were doing a lot of construction work, like laying sidewalks for people who were in wheelchairs in certain rural areas, and giving wheelchairs out. And you just come back and you're like, oh, we've done all this good, and then you come back to regular world and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's miserable. And so it's really hard. And so they debriefed us and they trained us to come back. And I don't feel like there's any preparation for the military. Some things can be super extreme. And I shared this in a podcast prior. I related it to alcohol. Until I got sober, I didn't realize how alcohol was so big, and alcoholism was so insane. When I went into my rehab situation and my detox situation, it was at a big hospital. And there was hundreds of people there, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, what, this is a problem? Wow. And the same thing happened when my second ex, he was in the military as well. He was a colonel in the Army. And we went to Walter Reed when September 11th happened, and to see his nephew, because he lost his legs over in Iraq. And we were devastated. So we went up there to see him. And when we got there was thousands of people with no limbs. And I was like, we're at war? Like, I was clueless. Like, someone who's in the know. And I couldn't believe how the military was just battered and just in war. And these people had no arms and no legs. And then they were discharged right back into the world. And what is there to do but drink and feel sorry for yourself if you're not active about your therapy, right. Or if they're prescribed medication for depression or anxiety, and then they don't take it because they don't feel like they need it. There are resources out there now, which is great, because of social media and resources like your book, obviously, people can get help now. And like you and me, when we were getting sober, I didn't feel like I would Google, am I an alcoholic? How many drinks makes me an alcoholic? And I didn't see like single mom who has a business is an alcoholic on there. I saw, did you get a DUI yet? Have you been to jail? And I don't feel like when people get out of the military, there's anything they can do, like, how do I deal with my alcoholism post-military? And so I think that's where you come in. So when you decided to get sober and you started your book, what kept you sober? What is your why? And what is in front of you now that you are doing? And maybe you can share that with us.
Well, it was actually right before I got sober. I was visiting San Diego. I was raised in San Diego,
Okay.
and I I think I had I missed my first flight because I was drinking too much, and my mom was like, "Nah, they're not going to let you on the plane." So I was so determined to go to San Diego, party one more time before I went to treatment. And when I literally got off the plane, I came from Minnesota. I had got like real sick. I had like got off the plane, stopped at the bar, got something to drink, and a family member had came and picked me up. And by the time we got to his house, I would probably say within the hour, I just like broke out in a real bad sweat and just kept sweating and not realizing that I was having a panic attack. So I had to drive out to like La Jolla. I don't know if you're familiar with San Diego,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
drove up to the VA up there, and they were my brother's ex-wife. She took me, and they pulled her to the side and told her like, yeah, he needs to go talk to his doctor. My A1C was just out of control, and that's when I found out that I had diabetes. And my father had almost died from diabetes because my father is also a recovering alcoholic. So I had I saw what he had to go through, and so that was more or less like the straw that broke the camel's back. But I still, in my mind, I wanted to drink. So that was the more or less, the health issues. The why was because I had tried to get sober so many different times that it like opportunities positive continued to come in front of me. I had got was doing community work in the city of St. Cloud that was sponsored by the mayor of St. Cloud and the police chief of St. Cloud Police. And so I was doing community work, and all these other opportunities continue to come. And so I was like, I don't know what life is going to be like, but I'm enjoying it. So I'm going to continue, and it was like, all right, one day after another, here it is. I'm still sober. I'm celebrating a month. Now it's 3 months. Now it's 6 months. Now it's a year. And then now, year after year, it's still there. And so it's like, you know, don't get me wrong. I have had some, tough moments, almost relapse. I'm not gonna lie. Probably about a month and a half ago, due to some personal issues. But luckily, I had people like I literally went to the store. Like no one knows this. I promise. I went to the store. I went to Family Dollar. I was in Jacksonville, and someone in the store actually bought the book. And so I went up to her and I said, "So if I buy a drink right now, would you sell it to me?" And she said, "Yeah." And she was a manager, so of course she wants to get the money. I said, "Now I'm sober, right?" She's like, "Nah, I wouldn't sell it to you." But like sometimes it took that, for me to tell her like, wait a minute, now I've been sober this long and I don't need this. And once I said that to her, she kind of got to it. But I guess now it's more or less of the fact that I'm able to tell the story, to share with others like yourself that's early in sobriety, that if regardless of if you have a plan, that plan probably is not going to work. You have to be able to think on the fly. You have to be able to adjust, and be able to know that not every day is going to be good, but on those bad days you still don't have to resort to drinking. And as you mentioned, having a sponsor. And if you don't have a sponsor, have a really close friend that respects you and understands that, you are very serious about the sobriety journey. And let's see what else. Did I answer that? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. When you were gonna relapse, it took the basically the person that said something to you for you to go, okay. when you walked away from it, did you feel proud of yourself for denying it, or did you feel guilt for even being there in the first place?
Guilt for
Okay.
being there, guilt for letting my brain get to that point again of weakness, because I mean, I've dealt with a lot of different things. I lost my grandmother last year. And but at least she was able to, I was able to see her before she passed away. She knew that I was sober, knew that I had the master's degree, knew that I had a book. So in my heart, I knew that that was okay, even though I didn't go to the funeral and I could have relapsed then. And so, but it was just something that that triggered it. And I don't ever want to have that feeling again, because I know what I've accomplished up until this point. But like I said, I'm human. I am a recovering alcoholic, and it'll be in my DNA for the rest of my life. So I have to be able to, you know, get, not let those situations get the best of me again.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
Yeah, I think about that. I think about, I haven't had anything serious happen in my sobriety besides just, when I first got sober, they say everything happens the first 90 days. And, it just did. Like, it was just so chaotic. Like, my life, like, it was like every time I get to a milestone, like my 6 month, the whole week of that week, I had an EMG test on my feet because I have severe neuropathy from drinking too much and being pre-diabetic because of my drinking. So you just don't realize how many, when you're drinking, because all you can think of is the drink, is that you're just ruining your body, and you just don't care. You don't care. The chemical is in there, and it's doing its job because it's telling you that you're doing everything right, and honestly, all you're doing is hurting yourself. And I feel like too, with people in the military, I feel like with alcoholism, it's very hard for people, especially now. I've talked a lot about this month because I'm very passionate about it. I do feel like COVID has really raised the bar. I mean, alcohol sales have gone up 500% since COVID-19, which is outrageous. And we've made it so acceptable because, we put it on TikTok. We say, oh, congratulations, here's some champagne. Okay, had a hard day, here's a glass of wine. Okay, we're gonna have a picnic, keg of beer. Like, everything is okay. And because of the increase of the alcohol, people don't realize that we are literally feeding ourselves a chemical, and at some point people are going to start drinking because of the chemical. Like you said, you're having the sweats, you're having, your body's craving these things that you need because you've been feeding it and it needs it. And so people are going to start drinking because they don't know why. And that's what happened to me. That was my rock bottom. Was I was waking up in the morning and drinking because I needed it. Otherwise I started sweating, or I start having anxiety or a panic attack. And so as soon as I got that drink, it was like, okay, I'm okay. And then I started feeling my body get back to normal, and the sweat started to go away.
Mhm.
And I feel like with this pandemic, it's also been a big pandemic of alcoholism getting ready to, it'll surface at some point where the chemical imbalance is going to hit everyone. And with people in the military that I talk to, that they'll say, you know what, I listened to your podcast and I'm not an alcoholic, but I think I need to stop drinking so much because, I started drinking a lot more since COVID. And the people in the military that I know that are in recovery, the reason why it took them so long to go to recovery was, one, when you're in the military, I mean, you have gone through something and you've experienced something that most people have not been through. I have not been through it, but we all know someone in the military.
Mhm.
And when you come out of the military, like you said, there is no debrief, you're thrown right into that. But there's also the fact that you have to battle your mind. And your mind is you're amazing, you're courageous, you're in the military. We are proud to be Americans. We are proud, to be military. And then when you're an alcoholic, it's failure. I've failed. And so a lot of military people have a really hard time admitting or exposing themselves because it's such a big failure to them. And really it's not, because I'm no different than you when it comes to our substance abuse. I struggle with it just as much as you do, and we just come from different walks of life. However, I think that being in the military, there is more pressure, there is more stress, there is post-traumatic stress, there's things that I don't relate to. And I know that there's help out there, but I do think that a lot of times people do have the same situation as you, and they get out and they just start drinking.
Mhm.
So what would you tell that person if they were, in the military, or just got out of the military, or listening to this and they know someone in the military and they're getting ready to come out into the world, into the COVID world? What, besides, resources like your book, what advice do you have to that person to, not indulge in alcohol as a, just as a suppressant to those feelings?
First and foremost, I would say take advantage of the VA. That's number one. And if you can get the treatment for medical, get it. And what I mean by that is not just, okay, let me go get a yearly physical, but seek the mental health. They also have different groups that handles that do PTSD, things of that nature. So a lot of times, like I said, a lot of veterans will get handed their DD 214, and now they're already thinking about going to work. Sometimes you need a little bit of time to, like you said, debrief what just happened. The real world has been going on, but you've been in the military and you have a whole different language. It's a whole different animal. Like you said, there's individuals that's been deployed. I was fortunate enough not to have been deployed, but you have to process a lot of stuff, regardless of if you do one contract or you do a whole entire career. And I would say, and it took a while for me, because like I said, when I first was living in Phoenix and going to was in the VA out there, I lived too far. I was too embarrassed to go because I was drinking. I was that same person, just like you described yourself as. I had to get up. At 6 o'clock in the morning when I knew that they could sell alcohol, I was there at the store, and I didn't stop drinking probably till about 10 o'clock that night. And I would say, if you want to make that change, you got to change. And I say it over and over, and they say it in AA and other organizations, people, places, and things. You can't continue. You can't go home or go back to hanging out with the same people that you did, like when you would come home on leave. If you're trying to truly make the change, then you gotta do what you gotta do to ensure that that's what it is you want to do. Because a lot of times, a lot of times people will just go back to their regular lives and get caught up in the same thing. So I would definitely say that. I would say, make sure you get a therapist that truly works for you, not the other way around. And I've probably had about 4 or 5 different therapists. I love the one I currently have, because it's a lot more relatable compared to the other ones. It just didn't, it wasn't a fit, so I had to kind of switch it. So I would definitely say that. I would try to pick up different hobbies, things that you may not have done or you did while you were drinking. I wouldn't necessarily put that on the top of the priority list. Like for me, I don't like watching basketball that much, because I made a choice, like which sport do I want to watch, football or basketball. So I knew that I love football a little bit more, and I do fantasy football, so I need to invest in that. But like you said, either way it goes, if you're watching basketball or football, you're going to see alcohol. So I know that if I watch basketball, that's almost a whole year of seeing these ads, even though you see it everywhere else. And I
Mm.
just decided I didn't want to do that. Um, I would say, get some type of mentor, somebody that can hold you accountable, when you are having those moments where you're contemplating drinking or whatever it is. I would say, if someone is trying to truly get sober, not to date. early in sobriety. I learned that the hard way. Because I was, I got divorced maybe 4 or 5 months after getting sober, and I was yearning for the attention of the opposite sex, but not realizing that I needed to heal myself. And I jumped into something, and it didn't last. And so I made a promise to myself after that that I wouldn't date again until I was done with my master's degree. So that was a good year and a half. So get to know yourself. I mean, that's what I had to do. I had to, almost, retrain my thought, and even, coming with like women, like my standards of a woman was different that it was sober. Like I wouldn't let a woman come to my apartment if she was drinking. Like I had women come over smelling like alcohol. No, you got to go home. It didn't matter, if you want to do adult things. I was just like, nah, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's it it kind of you do what works for you, but just make sure that you're not drinking. And yet it's easier said than done, but you have to truly trust yourself, because in my case, mind you, I got out of treatment. I took all the furniture from my ex-wife. So I had the furniture, like I was doing a lot of, I was being very proactive. I got my car shipped to me when I was in rehab, as well as my furniture. And so what they did was I came down to my mom's house, which is like about an hour and a half away. And I got the phone call saying, hey, your furniture is going to be delivered. So I was up there by myself for like literally got out of treatment one day, was with my family, and then I had to be alone for the next 2 or 3 days. And so I had to, and I was afraid, but I knew that this time I wanted to just try it out. And like I said, each day was like, okay, I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna try it out. And it just kept working. So you kind of just gotta do what works for you. And despite the fact of the things that I'm describing, they may not work for the next person, but you have to figure out what it is or what it's going to take for you to continue and remain to stay sober, regardless of the circumstances.
That's great advice. I love it. I will put all 10 of those suggestions in the show notes for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
Sorry for
like,
being long-winded. I like talking about, I love talking about sobriety because I'm new to this, and with each anniversary that I celebrate, I get, I try to get better. My master's degree is in communication, so I'm doing something that's out of the norm, but I'm qualified because I studied how to effectively communicate, and it's just about my sobriety and what works and what's keeping me sober. So
it's excellent. I am so happy that you came on the show, and I look forward to our friendship, and congratulations on your engagement. That's very exciting.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to work really hard to get this out Veterans Day so that people can have something to listen to on their day off. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you. And like I said, I will put all the notes and your suggestions. I wrote them all down because they are words of wisdom. And I appreciate you during this time, and I appreciate your service, as I know everyone else does. And with that, thank you so much, Kenneth, for coming on. And you can find, you're welcome. And again, you can find Kenneth online on social media at 12 Faces of Sober. And also remember, today it's $8 off his book on his site, 12facesofsober.com, as well as it is on Amazon any other time. And there you go. And also you will be able to see this episode on the YouTube channel, Sober Onion. So you'll be able to watch us talk about this, as well as you can find it on Spotify and other platforms that you listen to your podcast. So with that, I also want to say, if you're loving the podcast and you want to support it, just go to soberonions.com and hit the support, donate, or sponsor button. And it goes to PayPal/soberonions, and it goes to the website fees, the editing fees, and just the resources to host a podcast. With that, again, I'm Crystal. Thanks again, Kenneth. And remember, if I can do it, we can do it.
True indeed.